sing my song. Too much wagonist, too much antagonist. Wolves and leopards are trying to kill the sheep and the shepherd. Yes, wolves and leopards are trying to kill the sheep and the shepherd. Yeah, too much informers, too much steel bearers, too much informers, too much steel bearers. Time to separate the sheep from the wolves. We're at the crossroads, and this is the time of decision. Too much informers,
my brothers and sisters.
too much steel bearers.
Shalom.
Too
Give
much
praises to Yahweh,
informers,
Bashim Yahweh Shai.
too much
I would
steel
like to give praises
bearers.
to El Tahar and the elders at GMS, to the New York GMS camp, Chicago GMS camp, South Carolina GMS camp, Pittsburgh GMS camp, the Canada GMS camp in Toronto, Trinidad Boys GMS camp, to the GMS camp up in Birmingham. This is coming from the GMS camp in London. Shalom, brothers. Today's topic that we're going to go over is about the Gentiles. Who are the Gentiles? Because we have this argument all the time. People always like to claim that the Israelites were never Gentiles. So today we're going to go through this, and hopefully you brothers who are still out there, who still are unconvinced, will understand that there are two kinds of Gentiles in the scriptures. So first I'm going to start with the Gentiles who are not Israelites, who are the heathens. I just want to give you an example of who these people are, so you have a clear understanding that there are Gentiles who are all the other nations, and then there are Gentiles who are Israelites, who were scattered and lived amongst the other nations and took on their customs and their beliefs and their cultures, but they were Israelites through birth, coming from the 12 tribes, and some of them never knew they were Israelites, while some of them did know they were Israelites, but still took on the customs of the Greeks and the Romans and the Canaanites and the Cushites. So just to give you a quick example of the Gentiles who are not Israelites. Now this is Joshua chapter 9. Now Joshua chapter 9 verse 1. And it came to pass, when all the kings which were on this side of Jordan, in the hills and in the valleys and all the coasts of the great sea, over against Lebanon, the Hittites and the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites and the Jebusites, heard thereof, that they gathered themselves together to fight with Joshua and with Israel with one accord. And when the inhabitants of Gibeon heard what Joshua had done unto Jericho and to Ai, they did work willy, and went and made as if they had been ambassadors, and took old sacks upon their asses, and wine bottles old and rent and bound up, and old shoes and clouted upon their feet, and old garments upon them, and all their bread of their provision was dry and mouldy. And they went to Joshua unto the camp of Gilgal, and said unto him, Unto the men of Israel, we be come from a far country, now therefore make a league with us. So these are some other nations that have come to the Israelites. They've heard of these great people, God's holy seed, the chosen people, and what they did in Jericho, and they've come to say, look, make a league with us because we don't want to fight against you. And these are other nations. And the men of Israel said unto the Hivites, Peradventure that ye dwell among us, and how shall we make a league with you? Verse 8. And they said unto Joshua, We are thy servants. And Joshua said unto them, Who are ye? And from whence come ye? And they said unto him, From a very far country. Thy servants are come because of the name of the Lord thy God, for we have heard the fame of him, and all that he did in Egypt. So these other nations had heard about the Israelites, and how they were, the exodus that they left out of Egypt, and what they did to the pharaohs and to the great Egyptians, because you've got to remember the Egyptians were the #1 nation during the time of Moses at that time. But they heard what the Israelites had done to them, and what the Most High, how the Most High destroyed them during their escape from from Egypt, during their captivity. Verse 9, and they said unto him, from a far country, thy servants are come because of the name of the Lord thy God, for we have heard the fame of him, and all that he did in Egypt, and all that he did to the 2 kings of the Amorites, and that were beyond Jordan, to Sihon, king of Heshbon, and to Og, king of Bashan, which was at Ashtaroth. Wherefore our elders and all the inhabitants of our country spake to us, saying, take victuals with you for the journey, and go to meet them, and say unto them, we are your servants, therefore now make ye a league with us. So as you can see, these other nations came to us to be our servants, some of these other nations, because they heard about the glory of the children of Israel, and they know who they were. Now we're going to go to same chapter 9, but verse 22. And Joshua called for them, and he spake unto them, saying, wherefore have you beguiled us, saying, we are very far from you, when ye dwell among us? Now therefore ye are cursed, and there shall none of you be freed from being bondmen, and hewers of wood, and drawers of water for the house of my God. And they answered Joshua and said, because it was certainly told thy servants, how that the Lord thy God commanded his servant Moses to give you all the land, and to destroy all the inhabitants of the land from before you. Therefore we were so afraid of our lives because of you, and have done this thing. And now, behold, we are in thy hand, as it seemeth good, and right unto thee to do unto us do. And so did he unto them, and delivered them out of the hand of the children of Israel, that they slew them not. And Joshua made them that day hewers of wood, and drawers of water for the congregation, and for the altar of the Lord, even unto this day, in the place which he should choose. So Joshua made them his servants. So they were the ones that would be taking the wood, the camps, helping them move. They were the ones that would be carrying. Every time they moved camp, they'd be carrying all of they would do all the logistics for the children of Israel, basically. They would be carrying the food, the water, all of their belongings and their goods. These nations that came to them to make a league with them, this is what they would have to do, because that was the only part they could play amongst the children of Israel. They could not play a part in the destruction of the other nations, or play a part in the worship of the Lord, because Yahweh was only dealing with one nation, which is Israel, which we already know that. Chapter 10, it says, now it came to pass when Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, had heard how Joshua had taken Ai, and had utterly destroyed it, as he had done to Jericho and her king. So he had done to Ai and her king, and how the inhabitants of Gibeon had made peace with Israel. So these are the same people that we were talking about, nation that had come to Israel and said, look, we want to make a league with you. We don't want to fight you. We want to be your servants, because we know about your God, who he is, how powerful he is, that he is the only true and only God that exists. So they came to make a league. So these other nations heard and knew the fierceness of the Israelites during that period of time of Moses. Verse 2, that they feared greatly, because Gibeon was a great city, as one of the royal cities, and because it was greater than Ai, and all the men thereof were mighty. So Gibeon was a greater city than the city of Ai that Joshua had conquered, that the nation that he had conquered. Now for them to have came on hands and knees to say, look, we don't want to fight you, we want to serve you. Whatever you need of us, tell us and we'll do it. Now for them to have done that, that put the fear into other nations now, that who are these people? Who are these chosen children of Israel? Who are God's holy seed? Wherefore Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, went unto Hoham, king of Hebron, and unto Piram, king of Jerub, and unto Japhiah, king of Lachish, and unto Dibur, king of Eglon, saying, come up unto me and help me, that we may smite Gibeon, for he has made peace with Joshua and with the children of Israel. So now they wanted to smite the Gibeons, these other nations, because they knew they were such a mighty people, but they had made peace with Israel. They wanted them to go to war with Israel, but the people of Gibeon knew and understood who the children of Israel were. Therefore the 5 kings of the Amorites, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Jerub, the king of Lachish, the king of Eglon, gathered themselves together and went up, and all of their hosts, and encamped before Gibeon, and made war against them. Verse 8, and the Lord said unto Joshua, fear them not, for I have delivered them into thine hand. There shall not a man of them stand before thee. Joshua therefore came unto them suddenly, and went up from Gilgal all night. And the Lord discomfited them before Israel, and slew them with a great slaughter at Gibeon, and chased them along the way that goeth up to Bethhoron, and smote them to Azekah and unto Makkedah. And it came to pass, as they fled from before Israel, and were in the goings down to Bethhoron, that the Lord cast down great stones from heaven upon them unto Azekah, and they died. And they were more which died with hailstones than that whom the children of Israel slew with the sword. So the Lord killed more of these people with hailstones that came down from heaven than the children of Israel actually slew with the sword. Now these are the other nations. This is what I'm trying to say. These are the Gentiles of the other nations, just so that you understand this. Then spake Joshua to the Lord in the day that when the Lord delivered up the Amorites before the children of Israel, and he said unto the sight of Israel, Sun, stand thou still upon Gibeon, and thou moon in the valley of Ajalon. And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed until the people had avenged themselves upon their enemies. Is not this written in the book of Yasha? So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven, and hastened not to go down about a whole day. So these are other nations. These are Gentiles again that Israel's fought against. Just so you understand that these are other nations. These are heathens, Gentiles, other nations. Chapter 10, verse 23. And they did so, and brought forth those 5 kings unto him out of the cave, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Jarmuth, the king of Lachish, and the king of Eglon. And it came to pass, when they brought out those kings unto Joshua, that Joshua called for all the men of Israel, and said unto the captains of the men of war which went with him, Come near, put your feet up upon the necks of these kings. And they came near, and put their feet upon the necks of them. And Joshua said unto them, Fear not, nor be dismayed, be strong of good courage, for thus shall the Lord do all your enemies against whom you fight. So this is Joshua telling them now, all the Gentiles and heathen nations that the Israelites are going to conquer on their way to go to the Holy Land, the land that was promised to them from their forefathers, from the Most High, the covenant they made with Abraham. These are some of the nations, the heathen nations, the Gentiles, that the Israelites were going to conquer on their way to the promised land. And afterwards Joshua smote them, and slew them, and hanged them on 5 trees, and they were hanging upon the trees until the evening. So he killed all those 5 kings of those 5 nations, and destroyed their people, and continued his journey towards, past the Jordan, going on now towards Israel. Because you've got to remember, Moses was told from his forefathers by the Most High that they're going now to the promised land that was promised to them, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, and the 12 tribes. Right, we're going to go to chapter 11, verse 1. And it came to pass, when Jabin, king of Hazor, had heard those things, that he said to Jobab, king of Madon, and the king of Shimron, and the king of Achshaph, and the kings that were on the north of the mountains, and of the plains south of Chinneroth, and in the valley, and in the borders of Dor on the west, and to the Canaanite on the east, and on the west, and unto the Amorite, and to the Hittite, and to the Perizzite, and to the Jebusites in the mountains, and to the Hivites under Hermon in the land of Mizpeh. And they went out, they and all their hosts with them, much people, even as the sand that is upon the sea shore, in multitude, with horses and chariots, very many. And when all these kings were met together, they came and pitched together at the waters of Merom to fight against Israel. So once again, these are Gentiles that have come now to fight against the children of Israel, because they heard what they did to the 5 kings, they heard what they did to Jericho, they heard what they did to the city of Ai. So they all these other nations gathered together and believed that they could defeat the children of Israel, who the Most High Yahweh, through Yahushua, had said to them, you are going to conquer all these nations in order to go to the promised land. So these are the other nations, these are the heathens, the other nations. So you understand, these are the other nations, the heathens that the scriptures talk about. Yeah? These are the Gentiles. These are the other Gentiles that the scriptures talks about in the scriptures. Chapter 11, verse 8. And the Lord delivered them into the hand of Israel, who smote them and chased them unto great Zidon, and unto Misrephoth, and unto Misrephoth-maim, and unto the valley of Mizpah eastward. And they smote them until they left them none remaining. And Joshua did unto them as the Lord bade him. He howled their horses and burnt their chariots with fire. And Joshua at that time turned back and took Hazor, and smote the king thereof with the sword, but haze up